Hello everyone, my name is Fatma Mawad. My talk today is about reimagining performance reviews for software engineers. How can we make it more timely, agile, and focused on engineers' growth? A little bit about myself. I'm a computer scientist. I got my bachelor, master's, and PhD in computer science. I worked for several years in industry, but most of my time really spent in academia, research, and teaching. I taught in different universities around the UK, Egypt, and Singapore, and my research interests are mostly in designing intelligent interactions, which usually brings machine learning, software engineering, and HCI together. My latest work was in personal informatics and healthcare, and that was back in Singapore. But then I relocated back to Egypt in Jan 2020, right before the pandemic, but that was a complete coincidence. And since then, I've been working as a director of engineering at Robusta, which is the home of my current problem and solution. So my talk today is divided into three main parts, and I will go a little bit quickly in the background and motivation, what really motivated me to work on this, and a little bit of background on Robusta and the problem. So then I will go through the design and implementation. I will show a demo as I discuss the design because there isn't much time to show all the details. But then and finally, I will go through the conclusion, which is collected from the feedback of the engineers. So Robusta is an Egyptian scale-up. It's a software house that provides custom software solutions to different clients. There are all sorts of ideas that Robusta is working on. And the overall team members are 100 plus, but the engineering function itself ranges between 57 to 60 plus. We have specialized tribes or teams, so according to their tech knowledge, for example, back end, front end, Android, and so forth. What's mostly unique about Robusta is its culture. It's a community of learners with a strong emphasis on mentorship and growth. It's a flat structure of leadership and it's very people-oriented. And that's what Robusta is really famous for. So with that in mind, as director of engineering, I knew I was expected to establish two guidelines for performance reviews because this is the vehicle for growth, right? So validation that people are actually growing. And this is a difficult problem in industry in general. I mean, many companies find this quite a difficult thing to do, but I also realized it's even trickier in Busta due to some challenges that I find quite interesting. So first, the process. The process is not consistent, of course, all over Robusta engineering because we are dealing with different clients and different engagements. There are a lot of unpredictable situations. So we work really hard to, spread the awareness of the agile principles and values. But because we know on the ground there will be a lot of times that the engineers will not be able to stick to one specific process, and that's not really what we want to do. So we have all sorts of things going on. We try to stick to something if the engagement with the client is clear and awareness is there. But most of the time we end up with something that I call some kind of process. I don't even have a name for that process, but are we following agile values so that we can deliver quickly and with quality on time for the client? Yes, we do. So this is a tricky situation that leads us to having a lot of inconsistent data. And in addition to that, this is a snapshot showing, the tool I created is to visualize the timeline of the project. And the light blue boxes are Scrum sprints and the green one are Kanban. And you can see that some projects have the mix of both going in parallel. So engineers might be involved in such different types of projects at the same time as well, because there is also the problem of dynamic allocation. A project might get to be on hold because of whatever circumstances happen to the client. So we needed to allocate the team to a different project during that time. So the circumstances for the engineers change. So the collected data on Jira or the even definition of done changes. So how can I evaluate objectively such engineer or give them a status report of what's happening? It's a challenging problem. And last but not least, really, is the capacity, alignment, and structure issue. Because in the current solutions, a lot of people rely on specialized team, extra resources. But we as an engineering function, we are the ones together managing each other. So we have the technical people actually do the performance reviews. And the technical people are involved in the delivery. So how can they give all that time and preparation for collecting data, analyzing data, to give feedback or proper feedback to the engineers? It's almost physically impossible for them. So of course it became a nightmare and overhead for them. They don't want to do it and they would like to avoid it. Sometimes it could take 7 hours a meeting between an engineer. and the manager, who's a technical manager. And of course, the biggest issue, which is currently exists in the Egyptian community at least, is that there is no standards between what defines a senior, intermediate, or a junior, and everyone is wanting to know where I am, and it's very, very subjective. So there are so many challenges, and I really felt that something is really, really wrong. I mean, when I was trying to design a solution for this, I felt like, why am I being so agile and graceful in trying to improve the way I'm delivering software for the clients and for the teams to work together? But when it comes to helping them grow or conducting any kind of feedback, the process is very bulky and heavy and almost waterfall. The documents themselves that I personally didn't want to read. So how am I going to actually create? So there's something really wrong there, and I felt that I need to go to literature to investigate a lot about this. And I realized that yes, there is a problem that's really acknowledged, that there is a need for agile performance reviews. People were very concerned about the investment, the significant investment they do in performance reviews, and at the same time, they didn't find that the value was matching the investment. I was actually surprised to know that in 2015, some companies really decided to teach evaluation performance or performance evaluations altogether. But we cannot do that. Engineers are looking for feedback. They want it for their growth. So I think what we really need to do is change the culture of it. We need to make it or turn this huge bulky process into something more dynamic and fluid. And the way I see it, feedback, in order for it to be worthwhile and really valuable, it must be timely, objective, and relevant. And to be timely as well, that means it's continuous. It's throughout the year. It's not at only a specific point of the year. So throughout the year, there is this informal discussions that the engineer status is visible, so that the managers are able to give feedback in one-on-ones, any kind of informal discussions. So the engineer is always seeing where they are. But then there are two main checkpoints, and these checkpoints are like call to actions. There is like a formal discussion based on it, some action or some step in the engineer's growth or career will be taken. And in order for me to achieve that or reach that kind of level in doing feedback, I knew that the traditional way wouldn't help me. I had to find another way, especially for the scale-up, environment. So I thought, okay, I need a dashboard, something like a dashboard, and that dashboard can be automatically created. It can accommodate for exceptional cases, and I can customize it as I'm using it. Now, another important question comes to mind. What metrics should I use or put in such a dashboard? How can I make it relevant? How can I choose my metrics? So in literature, such problem is also quite difficult. And even though there are some interesting ideas in literature, but none of them really address the problems that I have in Robusta with dynamic application and unpredictable project conditions. There's also the challenge of rating engineers. It's a challenge for all managers. However, in reality, if such ratings are not done in the PRs and are properly documented, things become worse because the invisible ratings or the black box ratings, as they call it, they emerge and people act on it subjectively. So there was a proposal by Facebook to make global macro ratings, which emerged from micro ratings, which is an interesting idea to make ratings more objectively or easily defined for engineers. So after my research, I decided to follow a top-down design. I decided to start with the topics that really matters to Robusta and still also relevant to an exceptional software engineer. So, of course, these topics must come from our OKRs, our main objectives. And then from each topic, I would think, what are the skills and competencies that the engineer should have that are relevant to such topic? And then I go further down and I think about what the metrics or the indicators that would give me an idea if the engineer has such skills or not. And of course, the metrics must be relevant to us and coming from our, the data that we track. It can be anything quantitative or qualitative, and they can be reused for multiple skills. This kind of design actually matches an interesting approach which is popular for such problems, which is the goal question metric. So you can think of the topic as the goal. So an example of that is efficiency and quality in process, for example, which we call delivery in Robusta. And then the questions are the competencies. So what kind of questions I would like to ask under such goal, which is efficiency. Oh, so is the engineer productive? Are they delivering quality? Are they meeting the goal? And then the metrics are anything I can measure from my current data and my current setting that will identify or indicate a little bit about the engineer's productivity, for example. So the rate of tasks done, are they the tasks done per plant, and so forth. Then I just put in the bottom that I can get such metrics from all sorts of sources. I can get them from GitLab, Jira, or from even Google Form, which is peer feedback, and I put them all to as indicators again for this specific skill. So in my head, this is something that can actually work for us at Robusta. And then we identified 5-6 main topics that we want to tackle for this review, which is first the efficiency and quality, tech specific, the technical skills for, if they are mobile or front end, back end, and so forth. Then the learning and development, which in Robusta means that how the person is learning and also how they are impacting other people's learning. It's a two-way thing. So the mentoring, the initial initiatives, and so forth. Their contribution to recruitment, their work with the external community, and leadership skills. So this is a slide that's showing the topics and examples of the competencies we identified under each topic. But I cannot go through all of it, but as you can see, it's just quite simple. And the thing is that this is what's relevant to us at Robusta. Anyone can do, or change it or customize it to match what they are, to match their OKRs or match what's really relevant to their own context. This is a bit of an overwhelming slide, but I tried to put everything in it for one specific topic. So for example, efficiency and quality in process, that's one topic. Under that topic, we have the skills, which are in this left box. Productive means goal, deliver quality, understanding the following process, team dynamics. So these are the skills that we're looking for in the engineers under that topic. And then on the right side, all these are metrics that we identified and we actually track. So they can change for different people and change for different companies. For us in Robusta, yes, we have a way to get rate of points, the rate of points done in that time, the undone high priority stuff, the percentage of the undone high priority work, and so forth. So these things really relate to how we work. And as you can see, I put the source of where I get such metric next to it, and they're all automated. And I also put at the bottom that a lot of questions as well in the Google Forms or the peer feedback forms are relevant to these skills as well. So far, I'm discussing the formal performance review process. So these are the things that are actually all collected and showed for the performance review report for the engineers. So let me give you a quick example of it from the real documents so you can imagine how it looks like. So when the time comes for the performance review, I run a couple of scripts, and in these scripts, it generate one folder for the whole engineering function. And this, for example, is the review December 2020. Generate folders for each for each tribe, and for each tribe, inside each tribe, you have for each developer or each engineer, we have a document. I'm sorry, I had to go quickly through this to avoid showing the names. But again, under each tribe, I can click on the performance sheet for the engineer to see the report that's generated. You will see that on the bottom, each tab represents a topic. Remember we have 6 topics that we identified and relevant to our OKRs. So each tab is a topic, and under each topic, as you can see, there is this competency metric. So the competencies, the top-down design, a topic, and then competencies. So we're saying productive, reliable, following process, and so forth. And automatically, all this is generated and showing me from just one look that this specific engineer, the most highlighted skills for him are following process, delivering quality, a little bit reddish on meeting goal, and so forth. So I have this very quick visualization of the competencies or the strengths of that specific engineer from their report automatically done for me. It's a very easy way to get feedback. Then I can now want to understand more. I can go more into details. All right, I can take each metric one by one. They have the description over them, and then discuss the metric with the engineer. The other thing as well is that I have a tribe average as well. So the engineer can see their own average and the tribe average. So this way, if they feel, all right, so I have such certain circumstances, so my numbers are very low or they are high, or if it's a negative number and so forth because of this and this and this. So we discussed with them the average of their own tribe, the mobile tribe, for example, and this way they can see where they lie, where they are in the scale. The other thing is that every metric, as you can see, has competencies on the right side defined for them. So task rate for us means productive and reliable. What if the engineers comes and tell me, this metric specifically does not apply to me because in my projects, I had a very special circumstance and I don't want this metric to affect my competencies metric matrix. So what we do is that I can just take this out and put it here. Automatically, the matrix will be updated. They will see a different view. So now it's customizable. I can change it. The discussion itself is what driving the review, and that's what we wanted. And this goes for every little topic we talked about. So for every topic, as you can see here, I have metrics coming from GitLab. I have all these questions are actually coming from Google Forms. So the script brings data from all these resources, put it together in this one big snapshot, and the report drives the discussion during the performance review. Then we have at the end a sheet where we speak about the actions or the next steps for the engineer. But as you can see as well, there's one thing missing, or there is one thing missing in our design, the ratings. How I'm going to do the ratings. So after I had the discussion about efficiency and quality and process, I want to rate the engineer. Remember, we don't want to completely ditch ratings. So what we have done is that we have adopted the levels proposed by the medium engineering graph framework. They have very interesting levels, and we've adapted these levels to what really matches our work environment at Robusta. So we have understand, grow, achieve, innovate. Understand means you are competent, you know what's important, but you still need supervision, and your impact is only on your individual tasks, on only what you do. But grow is you are doing your work, but your impact is, you need a little bit of supervision, but your impact as well is over the whole team. You are really impacting positively the whole team. Achieve, you are impacting multiple teams, and you really hardly need supervision. In innovate, you are impacting the whole organization, and you're even adding to the whole topic. So this is a little bit of the more, let's say, complete version of the story, where you see the ratings over the topic. So for each topic, you can see the rating and the definition of each level. The engineer can rate themselves, and the supervisor as well rate. So the rating happens during the performance review and the discussion about it, so that the engineers knows what happens with such scores and where they are coming from. So after the whole process is done and everyone has got their own ratings and the topics, and they were discussed with their managers, we actually multiply the rating of each topic with its weight, because of course the topics are not equally weighted. I mean, recruitment is not as equally important to the company as delivery and so forth. And then we have a final score for the engineer. And by just simple distribution, the levels emerged already automatically. I mean, there is no subjectivity there, and we know how to trace them back. So each engineer, for example, would know in which group now they lie, and if they want to improve or go to the next group, they need to go and revise the rating and see where they can improve. And of course, they have very specific dimensions about growth as well. They know that maybe I need to work more on recruitment, maybe I need to work more on my community work or the learning and development and so forth. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this process must be automated. I mean, everything, starting from generating the sheets, sharing things within email, sharing permissions and privacy and all of that, everything must be done in a few clicks. And that's what I was able to do using Node.js, where I collect data from GitLab and Jira, and also I leverage a lot the Google Cloud using app scripts so that I can actually talk to the Google Forms and put all this data together into the sheet, which is also customizable and shared on the company's account. Finally, we were collecting feedback all the time. I mean, even before the performance review itself, we get feedback about the actual metrics. We try to validate the metrics, the competencies, and we allow the engineers to make any changes just right before the performance review takes place. And also after, we also get the feedback about how, if it was valuable or not. And there is no doubt that everyone acknowledged how valuable it was. There's a lot of value added because the significant decrease in the amount of time for preparation. The meetings were time boxed. We rarely go beyond 2 hours in the performance review. People love to see people feedback at the same time with the project data, and all of them puts, they are all contribute to their competency scores. Having the levels emerging automatically with traceable origins, so I can actually know why am I in that level and be able to improve it. All these value has been added. But I also, as a director, have loved the fact that I was able to align my expectations with engineers through these metrics. They were able to see that I really care so much about undone high priority bugs, for example, stuff like that. But there was also some challenges when we started. There were some bugs in my first MVP, and we lacked some concluding image at the end. But now we're doing that, like to give a very clear conclusion of the performance. And also, some people were overwhelmed by interpreting the data So it took us time to do awareness sessions to make them understand how this data, what does it mean, and how we can use it for the discussion. We were not also working with the part-time and exceptional cases of part-time engineers, but then we have improved a lot of that till now, actually. And moving forward, we are still working on different versions of the system to make it better and better. I'm looking forward for your questions, and I'm really thankful for all of you who actually listened to the talk. Thank you.
11 seconds. So you see it blinks red there. Yeah.
So the backstage is live.
Yeah, soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much. Thank you, Fatma, for this very nice talk and the work you have done. It's definitely a very special system to measure people and their competencies. And my first question to you is really, isn't this a bit sort of micromanagement, or don't people feel a bit controlled?
Well, actually, it was done for the other way around. So we don't actually do this for management. People have the dashboards and everything to self-manage. But this is done mostly for the performance review time. Everybody's looking for feedback. And most of the engineers in the company are junior engineers that are looking to see, okay, so I would like to grow. What's my next step? Have I done well? Am I doing well? And before that, things were subjective, and it was really, really hard to convince people of anything. And sometimes, of course, it's sensitive. We're not transparent enough. So having data-driven, metrics and that's actually organized and structures towards competencies help us deliver a good message and help us in the PR to have a good, fruitful conversation. So okay, so we see that the competency of understanding the process or planning well we need to work on that more. And this is based on your work on this and this and this. And then we see, do you agree or not? So this discussion overall brings us to a fruitful action point at the end of the PR.
Okay.
And yes, so that was the aim, mostly growth. The PR is really for growth, not measuring or evaluating.
Okay. So of course, one would say in a good survey, you would have to ask how people experience this system. Have you gotten feedback from your people? Yeah.
Yes, I've gotten feedback actually in many ways because we have done multiple iterations of this. And yes, we do have like a couple of people who are saying, okay, so this is very good, but it doesn't work for me because my project have exceptional circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the main challenge I mentioned at the beginning of the talk. That why we are unable to do good performance review in a scale-up. We have so many different projects. So what we did, the design that I did in the dashboard was to allow me to customize. So I tell them, okay, so where is your exceptional circumstances? And I take this out of the, automatically it just recalculates. So this way I'm able to, overcome the exceptions.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good thing. So you say you have done a lot since you did this talk. Have you learned something particular about having this process run afterwards?
Oh, I learned a lot about how to think of people's growth and how to make it actionable. Because in the first iteration, even though we had a lot of data and we had very good discussions, but we did not come up with very good actions for moving forward. But then I learned that lesson in the first time, and then in the second and the third one, we had this retrospective done at the end. And out of this, okay, so after our discussion, exactly what's next and when do you would like me to check with you, what have you done on this? So this is it's like a plan for growth. So that was my biggest lesson from the first iteration. And then my final lesson, to be honest about this, is to make it as simple as possible. So I took out a lot of the things that were uncertain but still kept the structure of competencies and metrics.
Okay. So it's a very interesting system how to sort of give people feedback and also encourage them to do new stuff, right?
Yes.
So could you give an example of some of the competencies in the software engineering that you think you particularly have, growth or challenged the people?
Yes, that's actually a very, very good question, because one of the things I mentioned in my talk is that this system helped me to align my goals and what I'm looking for and regarding quality with the engineers in the discussion. Because, for example, when they see that the metrics are saying the number of or the percentage of undone high priority bugs and stuff like that. So this is a metric. If it's really high, the percentage of the things that are undone for the engineer and it has high priority stuff, and then they come up and ask me, okay, so what's high priority for you? And then we start, I get shocked also. Yeah. We don't actually have that definition. So we align and we improve that throughout all engineering, that people understand a very good definition of what's high priority in the software and that they're building and define it and so forth. So I would say, of course, the high priority bugs and, of course, the